Hey guys, my name is Jason Neistat and I've been shooting video, making films, and working with clients in video production for over 30 years. Now whether I'm filming TV shows, music videos, or cinematic stories on the go, one thing has always stayed true. Video is one of the most powerful storytelling tools in the world. And in this course, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to go from total beginner to confident filmmaker. And don't worry, this is not just for people with expensive gear or pro cameras. The camera I'm filming with right now is the Nikon Z8, but throughout this course I'll be using my Nikon Z6 III with a flip-out screen. Now this is just because they're my main personal cameras that I trust and use daily. But everything I'm teaching applies no matter what camera you're using, whether it's Canon, Sony, Fuji, Panasonic, or even your phone. It's all about understanding the principles behind great video. By the end of this course, you're gonna know how to shoot beautiful footage, capture great audio, light your scenes like a pro, and tell stories that connect with your audience. And the best part is I'm not gonna make you memorize technical jargon or buy a ton of gear. I'm gonna show you exactly what matters and what doesn't, so that way you can focus on creating. This course is packed with real-world examples, simple breakdowns, and exercises that you can try today. You'll also find a free downloadable gear list and starter guide in the description, so make sure to grab that. I really wanted to create the kind of videography course that I wish I had when I started, something that actually walks you through everything, not just camera settings and not just gear, but the whole process. Lighting, audio, lenses, storytelling, editing, everything you need to start creating stunning cinematic videos without having to jump around YouTube for 15 hours trying to piece it all together. And that's why I made this course completely free. There's no sponsored ads, no signups, it's just all here. So you can bookmark it if you want and come back to it whenever you need it. If you do get something out of it, the only thing I ask is if you just hit subscribe. It really helps me keep making stuff like this for creators like you. So with all that said, if you've ever wanted to create videos that actually look cinematic, or if you just want to finally understand how to use your camera like a filmmaker, you're in the right place. So let's dive in and get started. So let's start at the beginning. Understanding your camera is the foundation for everything else in videography. And the truth is, you don't need a fancy camera to start, but you do need to know how it works and what it's capable of. Now there's a few main types of cameras you might be working with. You've got your smartphone, a mirrorless or DSLR camera, a cinema camera, or even a compact point and shoot. Now I personally shoot on a Nikon Z8, which is a full-frame mirrorless camera, and I love it for its sharpness, dynamic range, and color science. But everything I'm about to teach you applies no matter what camera you're using. So what's the difference? Well, phones are very convenient, they're surprisingly powerful, and they're always in your pocket, which is a huge plus. Mirrorless DSLR cameras give you more control. There's interchangeable lenses, better sensors, and manual settings. And there's cinema cameras. These are built specifically for professional video, but they're more expensive, they're a lot bulkier, and they're definitely overkill if you're a beginner. For most of you, I think a mirrorless or a DSLR is the sweet spot. Something like the Nikon Z30, Z50, or Z8 if you're ready to go pro. Now, if you're not a Nikon shooter, don't worry. I'm gonna give you a quick side-by-side comparison of the Nikon cameras I'm using in this course with the closest Canon and Sony equivalents, so you can easily figure out what matches your needs. Now, just to be clear, this video is not sponsored by Nikon. Over the years, I've shot on Canon, Sony, Red, Panasonic, you name it. And honestly, I think any modern camera can be the right tool. It's all about how you use it. I started using Nikon gear a few years ago when I was commissioned for a project that required it. And to be honest, I was really surprised at how much I loved it. Since then, I've kept using Nikon for both personal and professional work. I've got several different bodies and lenses so I can swap setups depending on what I'm teaching or what I'm filming. So when you hear me mention a Nikon model in this course, just take it as a reference point. You can always find something in the same class and price range from Canon, Sony, or whatever camera system you're comfortable with. The techniques will still apply, and that's what really matters. Now these comparisons I'm about to give you are matched based on sensor type, features, target users, and especially video performance. So whether you're coming from another brand or just curious, this should give you a really clear picture of where each camera stands. Let's start with the Nikon Z30. This is Nikon's entry-level APS-C mirrorless camera made for vloggers and content creators. Its closest matches are the Canon EOS R50 and the Sony ZV-E10. All three are compact, beginner-friendly, don't have an electronic viewfinder, and are built to be easy, lightweight video tools. If you're just getting started or filming mostly handheld talking head stuff, these are perfect. Next is the Nikon Z52. This bumps things up a level. You get a proper electronic viewfinder, more physical controls, and better hybrid performance for both photos and video. That puts it right alongside the Canon EOS R10 and the Sony a6700. These are all fantastic choices if you want a more serious setup without jumping to full frame, especially for creators who shoot a mix of YouTube, B-roll, and stills. Then there's the Nikon Z6 III. This is where things get really exciting for video. It's a full-frame camera with advanced video specs. Think 6K internal, 10-bit, ProRes RAW, and excellent in low light. The Canon equivalent here is the R6 Mark II, and on the Sony side, it's somewhere between the A7 IV and the FX30. Now the FX30 is an APS-C sensor, but it's built from the ground up for video and has cinema features like shutter angle and true timecode. The A7 IV is more of a hybrid. It's great for photo and video, and the Z6 III though is arguably Nikon's most video-focused hybrid yet. Next up is the Nikon Z8. I'm actually filming on this camera right now. This camera is an absolute beast for solo creators who want top-tier image quality. It shoots 8K internal RAW recording, and it's basically the flagship Z9, but in a smaller body. Its direct competitors would be the Canon EOS R5 and the Sony A7R5. Both are full-frame hybrid monsters. Or if you're more video-oriented, the Sony FX3, which is part of Sony's cinema line, but built for handheld shooters and creators. And finally, there's the Nikon Z9. This is Nikon's flagship camera. There's no mechanical shutter, massive resolution, stunning dynamic range, and it's built like a tank. This puts in the same category as the Canon EOS R3 and the Sony A1. Now these are workhorses for high-end commercial projects, studio shoots, fast action sports, and big budget filmmaking. All three are priced for working professionals, but they're the top of the line. So if you're trying to decide where to start or what to grow into, this comparison should give you a solid roadmap. The good news is you can make cinematic videos with any of them. And it's not just about the camera, it's about what you do with it. And in this course, I'm gonna show you how. Now, I'm sure you've seen it 100 times on YouTube where you get a professional filmmaker with a cheap little camera and they get beautiful, incredible cinematic shots. And then you give a beginner a $5,000 or even a $20,000 camera and somehow the footage, it just looks off. It doesn't look as good. That's not by accident. It's not the gear, I promise you that. It's knowing how to use it. And that's exactly what this course is all about. Over the next couple hours, I'm gonna teach you how to shoot beautiful video on any camera. Whether you're filming on a Nikon, a Canon, a Sony, or even your phone, we're gonna break it down step by step. So by the end, you'll not only know what to do, but why it works. So whether you got a Z30, a Z8, or something in between, let's make the footage that looks good. Let's dive in. So let's talk about sensors, because this is where the image quality starts to separate. A sensor is sort of like the digital film inside of your camera. A bigger sensor equals better in low light, more background blur, and richer detail. Here's the most common sensor types that you'll see. There's a full frame, like what I'm shooting with the Nikon Z8. It's got a really big sensor, beautiful bokeh, and it's excellent in low light. Then there's APS-C or Super 35. These are slightly smaller, but still great quality. Sort of like the Nikon Z30, the Canon R50, or the Sony ZV-E10, or the Nikon Z52, the Canon R10, or Sony's A6700. Then there's micro four thirds. These are even smaller, lighter, and more compact. And then of course, there's phone sensors. Now these are very small, but every year they're really improving them and you can still get some great shots on your phone. The biggest downside of having a small sensor is they don't perform as well in lower light. Now full frame sensors are fantastic, but that doesn't mean that smaller sensors are bad. It's all about how you use them. Whatever camera you're using, here's a few features that actually matter for video. Number one, manual controls. You definitely want a camera that lets you control shutter speed, ISO, and aperture manually. That's what's really gonna give you that cinematic look. Number two, frame rate options. You really want to look for 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second, and 60 frames per second. And you can even go higher if you want better slow motion. Number three, audio input. Having a microphone jack is a game changer. Having clean audio really separates a beginner video from a professional one. Number four, autofocus and monitoring. Fast, reliable autofocus helps when you're filming yourself, and having a flip screen will definitely make framing easier. Now, a professional tip is you really need to learn your camera's menu. Even cheap cameras are really powerful if you know how to use them. So what camera should you use? Well, use what you have. If that's your phone, start there. If you've got a DSLR or mirrorless, learn it inside and out. Don't wait for the perfect setup, start creating now. Now later in this course, I'm gonna show you exactly what gear I use and I'll tell you why, including the Nikon Z8 and Z-mount lenses. But I'll also break down great beginner and budget-friendly options. So just remember, great videos are not about gear. They're about story, light, and sound. Cameras are just the tools. So now that you got a better handle on your camera, let's talk about one of the most confusing but important parts of video, frame rates and resolution. All right, let's talk about one of the most misunderstood parts of video, frame rate, resolution, and all those camera settings that seem really confusing at first, but make a huge difference on how your footage looks. By the end of this chapter, you're gonna know exactly what settings to use for cinematic video, slow motion, YouTube uploads, and more. Frame rate is simply how many images or frames your camera captures every second. 24 FPS is 24 photos every second. 60 FPS is 60 photos per second. 120 FPS is 120 pictures per second, and it's super smooth and perfect for slow motion. Now, 24 frames per second is the cinematic standard. It's what almost all Hollywood movies use, and it feels really natural to the eye, and it adds a bit of motion blur that makes things look more like film. If you want that cinematic look, you really want to shoot in 24 frames per second. 30 frames per second is a little smoother, which is great for YouTube tutorials or talking head content like this. 60 frames per second is super crisp. It's great for slow motion if you want to slow it down in editing. Here's a pro tip. Only use slow motion if your editing software lets you slow down higher frame rates, like turning 60 frames per second into 24 frames per second for buttery slow motion. Resolution is how much detail your video has. Think of it like how many pixels are packed into the image. 1080p, which is full HD, high definition, is most common. This is a lot easier to edit. 4K, which is ultra sharp, which gives you room to crop in. Then there's 6K and 8K. These are massive files, but they're great if you want flexibility, but it's definitely overkill if you're just starting out. I personally shoot most of my videos in 4K because it gives me room to crop in, reframe, and I get to deliver really crisp, professional looking footage. But here's the thing, if you're just starting out, 1080p is more than enough. It saves a lot of space and it looks great. Plus it's easier on your computer while editing. And here's the thing, you don't need to chase resolution. Even Hollywood has shot amazing films in 2K. Focus on story and composition, not the spec sheet. Okay, so let's get into the deeper stuff, but don't worry, I'm gonna make it really simple. First, there's bitrate. Bitrate is how much data your camera records every second. A higher bitrate equals better quality, but also bigger files. Think of it like this. If your camera is painting an image, bitrate is how many brush strokes it gets to use. Then there's bit depth, like 10-bit or 8-bit. This is one of those terms that sounds super techy, but here's what it really means. Bit depth is how many shades of color your camera can capture. 8-bit is 16 million colors. 10-bit has over 1 billion colors. Now the Nikon Z8 that I shoot with records internally in 10-bit, which means I get smoother gradients and way more color flexibility when I'm grading, and there's less chance of banding in the sky or skin tones. But here's the deal. Starting out, 8-bit still looks amazing, and we're gonna cover color grading later in the course, and I'll show you how bit depth makes a big difference then. So let's talk about codecs. And don't worry, I'm not gonna turn this into a science lecture, but a codec is basically just a way of compressing your video so it's manageable. There's H.264 and H.265. These are the most common, and they're great if you're uploading to YouTube. Then there's ProRes and BRAW. These are higher quality, but they're bigger files and they're better for editing. .mp4 and .mov, these are file formats, and they're not the same as a codec. Now, if your camera gives you the option to shoot in H.264 or H.265, use it for most projects. It's efficient and it's super easy to edit. If you're doing serious color grading or professional work, you may want a higher end codec like ProRes, but we're gonna dive deeper into that when we get into post-production. So if your camera has a high efficiency setting, it's probably using H.265. This one saves space, but it might slow down older computers during editing. So which settings should you use? Now, if you're not sure where to start, this is what I recommend. If you're doing talking head or YouTube videos, I would say use 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second. Personally, I'm using 24 frames per second. I would shoot on 1080p or 4K if you have some money for hard drive space or you really want that high quality for zooming in. Shoot on H.264. 8-bit is totally fine, but 10-bit if you have it. If you're shooting slow motion or action, I would shoot on 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second. Now remember, you need to interpret your footage back into 24 frames per second in your editor. Now if you really want the cinematic look, you definitely want to shoot on 24 frames per second so you can get that slight motion blur, but you need to combine it with another setting, and we're going to talk about shutter settings next. So now, hopefully you understand frame rates, resolution, bit depth, and the other stuff that used to sound confusing and you didn't need a tech degree to get it. Next up, we're going to talk about how to control the look of your footage using shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. We call that the exposure triangle. All right, now that you know how to set your resolution and frame rate, let's talk about what really controls the look of your footage. Exposure. In photography and video, exposure means how bright or how dark your image is, and is controlled by 3 settings: shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Together, they're called the exposure triangle, and getting a good image means balancing all three. Imagine exposure like filling up a bucket of light. Each setting, shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, lets in more or less light in its own way. Shutter speed equals how long your camera sees the light for. Aperture is how wide the lens opens. ISO is how sensitive your sensor is to light. So let's break down each one of these individually, and then we're going to put them all together. So shutter speed is how long your camera's sensor is exposed to light for each frame. In video, it also affects how motion looks. A fast shutter speed, like 1/1000th of a second, gives you really crisp motion, less blur. A slow shutter speed, something like 1/30th of a second, it gives you a lot of really good motion blur and more light. For cinematic video, we follow something called the 180-degree shutter rule, which sounds really confusing, but it's actually really simple. The 180-degree rule basically means your shutter speed is always going to be double your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, you want to use 1/48th of a second. Or most times you're going to use 1/50th of a second because most cameras will round to the nearest number, and that's close enough. If you're shooting at 60 frames per second, you'll double that to 1/120th of a second. Using this formula gives you just the right amount of motion blur to feel natural and cinematic. If your shutter's too fast, your footage feels real jittery. If you make it too slow, everything looks really mushy. Next is aperture. This controls how wide your lens opens to let in light, and also how much is in focus in your shot. A low number like f1.8 equals more light, and it gives you a really shallow depth of field, which means you'll have a really blurry background. A higher number like f11 brings in less light and more things are in focus. A wide aperture creates that beautiful blurry background that you see in cinematic shots. That's called a shallow depth of field. I often use Nikon's S-line lenses on my Z8, like a 35mm or an 85mm, because they let me shoot at really low f-stops to get gorgeous depth. A more expensive lens will allow you a lower f-stop. Now don't stress if your lens doesn't go super low. You can still create amazing images with an f4 or even an f5.6, especially with great lighting and composition. The last piece of the triangle is ISO. ISO is your camera's sensitivity to light. So a higher ISO, or ISO, makes the image brighter, but it also adds grain and noise, which is usually a bad thing. A low ISO, like 100 or 400, it gives you a really clean image and a lot less noise. A high ISO, like 1600, will make your image a lot brighter, but it adds a lot more grain and digital noise. Now on the Nikon Z8, for example, I can handle a really high ISO, which is one of the reasons that I use it. But even so, no matter what, I'll always shoot with the lowest possible ISO, and then I'll adjust the other two settings instead. So how do you actually balance all this? Here's one quick cheat sheet. If you want cinematic motion blur, set your shutter speed to double your frame rate. If you want background blur, use a super low aperture, like f2.8 or even lower. If you're shooting in low light, you're really going to need to raise your ISO, but only as much as needed. And remember, the look of your footage changes depending on which one of these you prioritize. Do you want it sharp, soft, bright, dramatic? There's no perfect setting, and that's the beauty of it. You do what tells your story the best. So here's another pro tip. If your image is too bright outside and your aperture is wide open, you can try using what's called an ND filter, a neutral density filter. It's like sunglasses for your lens. It might seem like a lot at first, but once you practice this triangle a few times, it becomes second nature. Next, we're going to break down lenses and focal lengths so you can learn how to frame up your shots for maximum impact. So now that you understand exposure, let's talk about the second most powerful part of your camera, which is your lenses. If the sensor is your camera's eye, your lens is how it sees the world. And the lens you choose has a huge impact on how your footage feels. Now, there's two main types of lenses, prime and zoom. Prime lenses have what's called a fixed focal length, which means they don't zoom, but they're often sharper, they're faster, and they let in more light. Zoom lenses can change focal length, so they're more flexible, and they're great for fast shooting. Right now, I'm shooting on a 24-70 zoom lens, and it's set to 50mm. It's crisp, it's got a shallow depth of field, and because it's a zoom lens, it's really easy for me to set up around my studio. Now, because I'm using this 24-70mm zoom, I can easily reframe without moving the camera, which is super helpful when you're filming on the go. And for beginners, a good zoom like this 24-70mm or an 18-55mm gives you great options. As you grow, prime lenses like the 35, the 50mm, or the 85mm are going to give you much more cinematic control. So focal length is measured in millimeters, and it basically means how zoomed in or how wide the lens is. A wide angle like 10mm or 24mm shows more of the scene. This is great for vlogging or landscapes. Then you've got mid-range, 35 to 50 millimeter. These are really natural looking. They're great for interviews and everyday use. Then you've got telephoto. That's 85 millimeters to 200 millimeters. These give you really tight shots and they compress the background. They'll give you beautiful portraits and really cinematic close-ups. So watch how different these feel. The wider ones show more space. The tighter ones feel more intimate and dramatic. Now this is where things get a little bit tricky, but I'm going to try to keep it simple. Cameras have different sensor sizes, and the size of that sensor affects how your lens behaves. So what is a crop sensor? A full-frame sensor is the same size as 35 millimeter film. This captures the entire image from your lens. But a crop sensor, sometimes called an APS-C, is a bit smaller. That means that it only shows the middle part of the image that your lens produces. It's kind of like zooming in a little by default, and it gives you a crop factor. So what is a crop factor? Crop factor is the number we use to describe how much tighter the shot becomes when you're using a crop sensor. Now most crop sensor cameras, like the Nikon Z30, the Z50, have a 1.5 times crop factor. So if you're using a 50 millimeter lens on a crop sensor, it behaves a little more like a 75 millimeter lens, because 50 times 1.5 equals 75. So you get a tighter shot, a bit more background compression, and a narrower field of view. So why would you use one? Crop sensors are not worse, they're just different. In fact, they're usually cheaper, lighter, and they're a lot more compact. These are great for travel and vlogging. So they give you better reach for wildlife or sports, and they still give you amazing image quality. It just looks a little different. So how do you know if you have one? Most beginner and mid-range cameras are crop sensors. The Nikon Z30 and Z50 are crop. The Nikon Z6, Z7, Z8, and Z9 are full frame. If you're not sure, just Google your camera model or check your user manual. It'll say APS-C or full frame right away. So if you're using a crop sensor, just remember to multiply your lens number by 1.5 to understand how it will look. A 35 millimeter on a crop sensor acts like a 50 millimeter. A 50 millimeter acts like a 75 millimeter. And remember, it's not better or worse, it's just a different way of framing. So how do you know which lens to use? For talking head videos, I would suggest using a 35 millimeter or a 50 millimeter. That gives you really nice framing and a blurred background. If you're vlogging, holding the camera yourself, I would use a 16 to 24 millimeter. This you can hold really close to your subject or yourself, and it'll show more of your environment. If you want really cinematic B-roll, I would use an 85 millimeter or something like a 70 to 200 millimeter. This will give you really shallow depth of field and a really nice, dreamy, cinematic feel. If you're doing some running and gunning and you're in a hurry to get a lot more shots, I would suggest getting something like a 24 to 70 millimeter zoom. These are super versatile. If you could only pick one lens to shoot with, I'd go with a 24 to 70 millimeter. But my favorites for cinematic looks are a 35 millimeter or an 85 millimeter prime. That's what you're gonna see in most of this course. Now, I'm personally using Nikon Z-mount lenses, and anyone will tell you how sharp and clean Nikon lenses are, especially the professional S-line primes. But honestly, any lens can work if you know how to use it, and I'm gonna teach you how to do it. Here's a few pro tips. Step back and zoom in. If you step back and zoom in, you'll get more compression in the background. This is gonna create a lot more dreamy depth. Lower your aperture, a low f number. This gives you more blur and more drama. Use movement. Lens choice and camera motion equals super cinematic storytelling. So lenses are a creative tool. Don't worry about having the perfect setup, just start learning how different focal lengths feel and then build from there. Coming up next, we're gonna dive into one of the most powerful tools of visual storytelling, composition. All right, so far we've covered gear, lenses, exposure, but now we're getting into stuff that really makes your videos stand out, how to frame your shots. This is where you move from simply recording video to actually telling a story visually. Composition is how you arrange elements in the frame. It's what guides the viewer's eye, sets the mood, and gives your video that cinematic feel, even if you're just filming at home. Now, there's no right way to compose a shot, but there are time-tested tools that you can use. So let's start with the classic rule of thirds. So imagine a grid on your screen that divides it into 9 boxes, 2 lines horizontally and 2 lines vertically. Now, if you place your subject along those lines, especially at the intersection points, your shot will immediately feel more natural and professional. Off-center composition creates a bit of tension and interest, and it also gives your subject space to look or move into. Now notice how the space in front of your subject feels positive, like we're looking into the future. And the opposite feeling is true by having space behind your subject. It feels mysterious or tense. We can't see what's in front of the subject, and it really conveys that sense of mystery. Now, leading lines are lines in your scene that guide the viewer's eyes, like roads, fences, hallways, and shadows. You want to use them to draw attention to your subject or also to create depth in your shot. Just keep an eye on where those lines are pointing because they direct your focus whether you want them to or not. And you can also use natural frames in your environment like doorways, windows, and arches to surround your subject and pull that attention in. And always try to think in layers: foreground, middle ground, and background. That's how you can create really good depth in your shot, even with a basic setup. Depth makes your shots feel more immersive, like the viewer is actually there with you, not just watching from a distance. Now there's a few essential shot types that every videographer should know, and we're going to be using these throughout the course. There's a wide shot, or an establishing shot. The wide shot sets the scene. It shows the environment and context. A medium shot. This is from the waist up. This is great for interviews and conversations. Then there's the close-up. The close-up shows emotion and detail. You can use this for dramatic or really intimate moments. Inserts and cutaways. An insert or a cutaway zooms in on one specific object or an action, like a hand turning a knob or a foot stepping. Then there's over the shoulder or POV. This puts the viewer in the character's shoes, and these are really great for storytelling. The way that you frame a shot affects how it feels. A low angle, for example, gives your subject some power. A high angle will give your subject vulnerability. Centered gives balance or isolation. Off-center can be natural or unsettling depending on the context. Now remember, we're not just capturing what's happening, we're guiding how the audience feels about it. You want your video to feel epic? Try a really wide angle shot with your subject small in the frame. You want it to feel emotional? Go tight, push in, let us see the character's eyes. So composition isn't just about what's in the frame, it's also about how the frame moves. A slow push-in gives emotional tension. A pull back can reveal more of the scene or what's happening. Pan will show space or follow movement. A static shot can be quiet or serious or even observational. Camera movement is just like music. You want to use it with purpose, not just because you can. So here's a simple way to start applying this right now. Pick one subject, make it a coffee mug or a notebook or even your pet. Try filming it using a wide shot and a close-up shot, get a detailed insert, a low angle, get a moving shot like a slow push-in or even a pan. Just try telling a story just by how you shoot it. Don't use any dialogue, no music, no sound. Just do this using your visuals. Pause the video and go try it right now. Great composition doesn't require fancy gear, just thought, intention, and practice. Once you start thinking in shots, your videos will instantly feel more professional. Coming up next, we're gonna light those shots like a pro. Even if you only have one window or a cheap light, you can create cinematic lighting that transforms your image. Okay, here it is. This is the secret sauce to making your videos look professional, even if your camera's not high-end. It's not about your lens or resolution, it's lighting. Lighting is the difference between a cheap-looking shot and something that looks cinematic and expensive. So cinematic lighting is about more than just making your subjects visible. It's about creating mood, depth, and focus. We use light to guide the viewer's eye, set the tone, and shape the story. So let's start with the two types of light that you're going to work with: natural and artificial. Natural light. Natural light comes from the sun. It's free and it's beautiful, but it changes constantly. It's great if you plan around it, and the best times to shoot are golden hour, early in the morning, or right before dark. Artificial light. Artificial light is controlled. It's the same every time you shoot. It comes from LED panels, lamps, and softboxes. They require setup, but they give you full creative freedom. If you're just starting, natural light is perfect. Just shoot near a window and you're halfway there. The 3-point lighting setup. Now this is the most classic lighting setup. It's used in interviews, films, YouTube videos, literally everything. Number one, there's a key light. The key light is your main light source. It's usually placed at about a 45-degree angle from your subject. It creates shape and shadows. Number two, there's a fill light. It softens the shadows on the opposite side of the key light, and it can be a dimmable light or even a reflector. Then there's the backlight, a hair or rim light. This light separates your subject from the background. It adds a pop and depth. If you don't have 3 lights, you don't have to worry about it. Here's how you can fake it. You can use a window as a key light and then use a white wall or a reflector for a fill. Clip a cheap LED light behind the subject as a hair light. Next up, soft versus hard light. Soft light gives gentle shadows and flattering skin tones. A hard light gives you sharp shadows and a really dramatic feel. To get soft light, you can use a softbox, or you can bounce light off of a wall, or you can diffuse it through something like a shower curtain or even a white bed sheet. Lighting isn't about brightness, it's about quality and direction. Now let's talk color, specifically color temperature. Color temperature is measured in Kelvin, K. 5600 K is daylight, it's cooler and it's bluish. Then there's 3200 Kelvin, which is tungsten. This is warmer and more orangish. Mixing color temperatures makes your image feel off, so you really want to match your lights or use gels to balance them. Now the Nikon Z8 that I use handles mixed light really well, but I still try to control my color environment to keep things clean. Now you don't need a $1,000 lighting kit to get started. Here's some budget options that are going to work great. Small LED panels like APERTURE, Amaran, or Godox. You can use clamp lights from a hardware store, a white reflector, or a piece of foam board. You can use a table lamp and put a daylight bulb inside of it. So let me show you a few different lighting setups that you can do right now. A window plus a reflector. This is zero-cost interview lighting. One light only, moody or YouTube vibe. Practical lights in the background gives you a warm cinematic environment. Lighting is like painting. Use layers, be intentional, and experiment. You'll be amazed at how much control you can create with very little. If you've ever thought your footage just looked I promise you, it wasn't your camera. It was definitely your lighting. Next up, we're going to dive into audio and why it's secretly just as important as your visuals. So here's the truth about video that surprises a lot of people. Bad video with good audio is watchable, but a good video with bad audio, people are going to click away in seconds. Audio is literally half your video. It's what makes your content feel professional, polished, and emotionally connected. Now you can light your scene beautifully and film it in 4K, but if it sounds like you're recording in a bathroom or it's really bad, your video is dead. Sound is what pulls your audience in and holds their attention, especially for YouTube, interviews, or films. So now let's talk about gear. There's a few types of microphones that you're going to see in video production, and each has its own strengths. Number one, shotgun microphones. These are directional. These pick up exactly what they're pointed at. They're best for just outside the frame. They're great for interviews and controlled setups. A couple examples would be the Rode VideoMic NTG, the Deity D3 Pro, and the Sennheiser MKE600. Lavalier mics, LUTs. These ones clip to clothing like I have right here. They're good for vlogging, interviews, and run and gun. There's wired or wireless options. Examples would be the Rode Wireless Go 2, the DJI mic, and the Tascam DR10L. I'm actually using the DJI mic 2 with the lavalier attached to it, and it's going wireless into a receiver that's in the camera. On-camera microphones. These ones plug directly into your camera. They're better than built-in audio, but they're still limited. But they're great for beginners and people on a budget. Most of the time when I shoot, I personally use a mix of shotgun and lavs, depending on the shoot. For this course, you're hearing me through a lavalier mic, which gives clean, consistent sound, even when I move. Now, even the best microphone will sound bad if you put it in the wrong place. You want to get close. Closer equals clearer. Avoid pointing it at walls or glass. You'll get echo. Use soft surfaces nearby, like curtains or rugs, to help reduce reverb. And you never want to let a mic rub against clothing. Ideally, you want the mic as close to the subject as possible without being visible. Now, you might want to take a microphone like this and you can put it underneath the shirt or the collar, or booming a shotgun mic just outside of the frame. Always monitor your audio. You always want to use headphones and watch your levels. Check that your peaks stay around -6 to -12 decibels. That's a good place to keep them. And you really want to avoid clipping. That's distortion because your levels get too high. Never let them get up to 0. You should try to never let your audio levels creep up past -6 decibels. Now most cameras, including the Nikon Z8 that I'm using, have audio level meters built in. You should always use them. If your voice looks like it's hitting the red constantly, you want to turn your input level down. No mic? No problem. I'm going to give you some quick tips to improve your sound without spending a dime. Use your phone. You can use your phone's voice memo app and sync it up later in post-production. Just go film in a quiet room with soft surfaces. Face away from noisy backgrounds like windows, fans, and traffic, and you can also add subtitles to help your viewers stay engaged. But if you can't afford just one upgrade, a $60 to $100 microphone will instantly level up your video. Now let me show you a couple setups that I've used in the real world. Talking Headed Studio, you can use a lavalier mic and a backup shotgun microphone. Run and gun documentary, use a wireless lav. Client interviews, use a shotgun mic boomed overhead. If you've got a travel vlog, use a Rode mic on camera. All these mic options are going to be listed in the PDF user guide. If you take one thing away from this chapter, it's this. Your audience will easily forgive rough visuals, but they will not forgive bad sound. Next up, we're going to get moving, literally. We're going to talk about handheld shooting, gimbals, and how to use motion with purpose. So you've got your camera, your exposure's dialed in, your lighting's cinematic. Now let's talk about how to move the camera. Camera movement is one of the most powerful and most misused tools in videography. When done right, it adds emotion, immersion, and storytelling power. When done wrong, it's just shaky chaos. Before you move your camera, you really want to ask yourself why. Why am I moving it? Is it to reveal something? Am I trying to follow a character? Do I want to try to build energy or tension? Camera movement should always be motivated, meaning there's always a reason behind it that supports the story or the mood. Handheld is raw, it's natural, intimate, but it takes a steady hand and some practice. Here's some things to help you with it. You want to use 2 hands, keep your elbows tucked in, slightly bend your knees for smoother motion. And don't try to be a tripod, let the shot breathe a little bit. Now again, my Nikon Z8 has really incredible IBIS. That's in-body image stabilization, and this really helps smooth out some small shakes. But stabilization isn't magic. You'll still need to practice good technique. So you want to use handheld whenever you want your viewer to feel in the scene, like in a documentary, a vlog, or an intense moment. A locked-off tripod shot is calm, balanced, and is great for interviews, tutorials, and cinematic scenes where the frame does the talking. You want to use this when the story is emotional or introspective, or you want symmetry and stillness, or you're focusing on dialogue or the acting. Even no movement is a choice, and it creates a much different energy than motion. Gimbals are motorized stabilizers that keep your camera super steady while you move. They're amazing for cinematic walkthroughs, following shots, or really movement-heavy scenes. Here's some gimbal tips. You want to walk heel to toe. We call it the ninja walk. Don't fight the gimbal, just let it float. Pre-plan your path and subject motion. Always be sure to practice. Practice your pans, push-ins, and parallax shots. But don't overdo it. Gimbal shots look best when used intentionally, not just as a flex. I'm going to give you 6 foundational moves to master, each with a different feel. Number 1, there's the push-in, or the dolly-in. This one builds tension and intimacy. You want to use it during emotional realizations or reveals. 2, there's a pull-out, or a dolly-out. This creates distance, reflection, or isolation. 3, you can pan. This goes left or right. This one reveals or follows movement. It creates space or reveals surprise. 4, tilt up or down. This one emphasizes scale, or it could introduce a subject. 5 is a tracking or follow shot. This one follows a subject in motion. It creates connection and immersion. 6, a static camera and subject movement. This is often more powerful than even moving the camera. Not every shot needs motion. In fact, holding still can be incredibly powerful. Sometimes you might want to hold still or during serious dialogue, quiet tension, visual storytelling where the subject's performance is the focus. A well-composed static shot lets your whole scene breathe. Real-world scenarios. Interviews. Use a tripod or a slow push-in. Travel vlogs. You can go handheld with a wide lens. Music videos. A lot of times you want to use a gimbal for following the motion. On a short film, you're going to use a mix of locked off and handheld for tone shifts. The key here is variety with purpose. Don't move the camera just to keep it busy. You want to move it to move the viewer. When you start thinking of camera movement as an emotional tool, your work will instantly level up. Next, we're going to put it all together on a real-world shoot. Planning, solo setups, and how to approach filming like a pro, even if you're working alone. So let's talk about what it actually feels like to go out and shoot something, especially if you're doing it alone or with a tiny crew. Most of the videos you're going to see from me on this channel, even the cinematic ones, I just film myself with one camera, a mic, and a bit of planning. Before you ever hit record, just take 10 to 15 minutes to plan. What's the goal of the video? What shots do I absolutely need? What location works the best? What's the light like at that time of day? Sometimes I like to sketch a quick shot list, even just on my phone. If you know your must-haves, everything else becomes easier and faster. Shooting alone is totally doable. You just need to work a little smarter. Use a tripod and frame yourself. A flip screen will really help with this. Make sure to record a test clip and then check your focus and audio. Pre-light your scene and then go sit in. Use autofocus with face tracking. Make sure you do a clap or a snap for audio sync if you're recording to external audio, like your phone or an audio recorder. Now, if your camera doesn't have a flip screen, you can just use your phone as a remote monitor if your brand's app allows it. Or it's easy enough just to film a short clip go check it, and then readjust as you need. Now there's really two types of shooting. Controlled setups, where you plan every shot, you got great lighting, audio, and framing, which is ideal for YouTube interviews and commercials. Or there's run and gun. This is where you shoot what's happening as it unfolds. Fast, flexible, not always perfect. This is ideal for travel events, behind the scenes videos, documentaries, and weddings. Neither one is better, it just depends on the goal. I use both all the time, but in both cases, the more intentional that you are, the better your footage will turn out. When you're filming solo, you can't do everything at once, so you want to try to shoot in layers. Number 1, get your wide establishing shot. 2, then go grab the medium and close-up shots. 3, add in your inserts, then B-roll, things like hands, objects, transitions. It's like building a sandwich. The main shot's the bread, and then the layers are what make it really interesting. So here's how I'd shoot a cinematic coffee scene all by myself. Set the camera on a tripod, get a wide shot, walk in, sit down, and act out the scene. Then I'll go move the camera and I'll get some medium and close-up shots of the same thing. Then I'll go in close up and film hands, pouring coffee, and steam rising, things like that. I'll record audio separately or use a lavalier. If I don't have a lavalier mic or something, I'll use the audio separately or get some cool sound effects from a company like artlist.io. Solo creators burn out fast if they don't have systems. So here's how I stay efficient. You want to charge everything the night before. Just be ready. Use checklists. Just write everything down. Camera, audio, cards, batteries. When you get back up your footage immediately. Shoot more than you need, but not everything. You don't want to overwhelm yourself in the editing process. Always shoot your intro and your outro first thing when your energy is high. Being a one-person crew doesn't mean you have to sacrifice quality. It just means that you need to plan, simplify, and trust yourself. Next up, we're gonna head into the editing room. I'm gonna walk you through the full post-production process from organizing footage to a polished export. All right, so you did it. You filmed your footage, you recorded clean audio, and you captured some beautiful moments. Now, it's time to bring it all together in editing. Editing is where the magic happens. This is where your story takes shape. And don't worry, you don't need to be a pro editor to create something really polished. Before you even open your editing software, we want to take a few minutes to organize all of our footage. We're going to create a folder structure: video, audio, B-roll, music, exports. Rename the files if necessary. I'm going to actually put a folder structure down in the description that you guys can download if you want. And don't forget, you really want to back everything up. Don't skip this step. Now trust me, organizing now is going to save you hours later, even if it's just a short YouTube video. Now there's tons of editing programs out there. Personally, I would suggest DaVinci Resolve. There's a free version, and that free version is insanely powerful. And the coloring tools are pro level. Other good options are iMovie on a Mac, it's beginner friendly, and there's CapCut, which is even mobile friendly, Adobe Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro, which are professional level options, and DaVinci Resolve. That's a professional option as well. It's also my top pick for beginners and pros. Once you import all of your footage in, you want to set up a timeline. That's your digital editing workspace. You want to match your timeline settings to your footage. You just want to make sure the frame rate's the same and the resolution is right. You want to drop in your clips, audio, and B-roll. You can use bins to keep everything organized also within your project. Now don't worry about fancy effects yet. The goal is to build your story first. The first cut is called the rough cut. This is where you're going to just get all the important pieces in the right order. Then we want to trim out the mistakes and dead space. Arrange your scenes or moments in the right order. As you go through this, try to keep the pacing natural. Don't try to be perfect yet. You just want to build the skeleton. This should feel more like a messy version of your final video, and that's exactly fine. Now, we fine tune. Now we want to adjust the audio levels so everything sounds even. We can add basic transitions like cuts, resolves, and wipes. Now we can go through and insert B-roll to cover up cuts and also to add interest. Next, we'll go through and add text and titles, lower thirds, names, and captions. Now remember, B-roll is going to become your best friend in editing. This can cover bad cuts, it can add texture, and it'll really help keep the viewer engaged. A good song can change everything. You want to use music with energy that fits the scene. Maybe you can build around the beat, cut to the rhythm. Fade your music in and out around dialogue. Maybe add some sound effects for transitions or movement or for emotion. Just make sure you're always using royalty-free music. I use sites like Artlist, Epidemic Sound, or even DaVinci Resolve's built-in library. Now before we export our final video, we want to do one final pass and check. Is the audio clean and even? Do the transitions feel nice and smooth? Is the color balanced well? We're gonna grade in the next chapter, so be sure to stick around for that. And make sure that there's no weird cuts or gaps. Make sure the titles and graphics are spelled correctly, and make sure you watch your edit all the way through, at least once before you hit export. Before we dive a little deeper into color correction, I'm gonna show you some good export settings so you can get it out into the world. Format, MP4 or MOV. Use H.264 if you're just uploading to the web. Resolution, choose 1080p or 4K. Bitrate, you want that around 10,000 to 20,000 kilobytes per second, or just choose auto. Now DaVinci Resolve makes this super easy with YouTube presets. Just click, export, and upload. So remember, editing doesn't need to be stressful. It's puzzle solving and storytelling. And once you get into it, it's honestly super fun. And now that your video is cut, let's take it to the next level with color. So now your video is edited, the pacing's right, the sound is clean, but it's missing that final wow factor. That's where color correction comes in. Color correction and color grading can totally transform your footage. And in this chapter, I'm gonna show you how to do it step by step. So let's start with the basics. People often confuse color correction and color grading, but they're two totally different things. Color correction is fixing. In color correction, you wanna make the image look natural and balanced. It should look like it was when we shot it. You wanna match the clips so they all look consistent. You wanna adjust the exposure, the white balance, and the contrast. Color grading is stylizing. You can add a look or a mood. Do you wanna make it teal and orange? Do you wanna make it moody blues? How about warm and golden tones? This is where your creative choice shows up. Think of it like this. Correction is just brushing your teeth, and grading is putting on the whole outfit for the camera. Color sets the mood instantly, before anyone even says a word. Warm tones say nostalgia, happiness. Cool tones are mysterious, or sadness, or tension. High contrast is bold and dramatic. Soft pastels feel dreamy and peaceful. Watch any great film and you'll definitely notice that they use color like a storytelling tool. So some cameras, like my Nikon Z8, let you record in what's called 10-bit flat color profile, like N-Log. That just means that the footage looks kind of dull at first, but it keeps way more color information in the file so that you can push it farther in editing without the image falling apart and breaking. 8-bit is 16 million colors. 10-bit has over 1 billion colors in it. That means smoother skies, cleaner skin, and fewer weird artifacts. Now you don't need 10-bit to grade, but if you have it, you should definitely use it. And if you're just starting out, you want to shoot in your camera's natural or standard profile until you're ready for log footage. So here's my simple color grading workflow, whether I'm working in DaVinci Resolve, Adobe Premiere, or Final Cut. Number 1, you want to color correct first. Fix the white balance. Is it too orange or too blue? Adjust the exposure, the brightness, contrast, all the shadows. Then you want to balance the skin tones. Use your scopes or your eyes. I'm going to go into another video later showing you how to use your scopes. They're super important and can be very helpful, especially if you don't have a great monitor. Number 2, apply your look. You can use a LUT, which is a lookup table, or manual grading. You can make teal shadows and warm highlights. Teal shadows, warm highlights equals cinematic classic. You can use curves, color wheels, or basic sliders. 3, you want to match clips. Make sure all your clips look like they belong in the same world. You want to match the contrast, the color tone, and the brightness. And it's totally okay to copy settings across multiple clips. Number 4, don't overdo it. You don't want crushed blacks, no radioactive orange skin. Subtlety always wins. If it looks graded, it's probably too much. DaVinci Resolve has the best color tools, even in the free version. There's LUTs. These are pre-made color looks. Some are free, and some you can pay for. There's scopes. Scopes help you balance your brightness and color without guessing. Grading panels. These are optional gear for advanced control. These are definitely not needed to start, but as you get better, they really help you work faster. I'll link some free LUTs and guides in the description, as well as a PDF if you want to experiment. Here's some quick examples of what grading can do. This is a flat one, graded with warmth. Harsh daylight, softened with pastel tone. Underexposed shot, rescued with correction and a stylized look. The point isn't to copy a specific look, it's to use color intentionally, just like framing or movement. Keep it simple. If you're brand new to all this, just focus on correction first. Just make it clean, balanced, and consistent. As you get more comfortable, start experimenting with the color wheels, the curves, and creative grading. Color is the final layer, and when you get it right, your footage just comes alive. Next up, we're going to talk about exporting your project and getting it all online, the right way. All right, so you've filmed, you've edited, added sound, and graded your video. Now it's time to export it and share it with the world. This is the final step in the process, and if you mess it up, all that hard work could look not so great. So let's walk through exactly how to export your project like a pro. First, you want to ask yourself, where's this video going? Is it going to YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok? A high-end client? Are you archiving it for later use? Different platforms have different requirements, but the good news is most editing software makes it super easy to export the right way with presets. Before you hit export, you want to give your video a clean and clear name. You always want to use dashes or underscores, no spaces. You want to include a version number if it's a draft, and make sure to save it in a folder named exports. Example, my first short film final, version 1.mp4. Now this might sound small, but good file names make it so much easier to keep track of your work later. Now here's the export settings that I use for most YouTube or general video projects. I'll use a format, MP4. Codec, H.264. This is universal and web friendly. Resolution, 1080p or 4K. You want to match your timeline. I'll typically do 4K. Frame rate, match your source footage, whether that's 24 frames per second, 30, or 60. Bitrate, 10,000 to 20,000 kilobytes per second for 1080p, or 30,000 plus kilobytes per second for 4K. Audio, AAC, 48 kilohertz, 192 plus kilobytes per second. Now these settings will give you pretty great quality with manageable file size. These are perfect for uploading. Here's how to export your video in DaVinci Resolve. Free or the studio version works the same. You want to go to the Deliver tab, select the preset, let's say YouTube 1080p or 4K. You want to choose the export location, name your file, double check your resolution and frame rate, then click Add to the render queue, and then click on it and start render. So that's it. Render times are going to depend on your system, but once it's done, you're ready to upload. Uploading is more than just dragging and dropping the file. I'm going to give you some quick tips to give your video the best chance to succeed. You want to use a clear, clickable title. Make sure you add a compelling thumbnail. Fill in your description with keywords and links. You also want to add timestamps for longer videos, especially full tutorials. You want to use tags smartly. 5 to 10 is totally fine. And make sure you choose the right category. Make sure to upload at least an hour before going live, if possible, which will give YouTube time to process the HD version. You want your video to rank? You definitely want to write a clear title and description. You want people to click? Spend a few minutes making a great thumbnail. It really matters. Once you've exported and uploaded, you don't want to delete your project just yet. We want to keep a backup of the final exported file. Consider backing up project files and your raw footage. You want to use an external drive, or you can use cloud storage for long-term storage. If a client ever asks for a different version later, or you want to reuse clips for a reel or a short, you'll definitely be glad that you saved everything. Exporting your video isn't the end. It's the beginning of putting your work into the world. We've got one more chapter to go, and it's all about gear. I'm going to show you what I use, what I recommend, and how to build a setup on any budget. All right, it's gear time. This is the part that everyone gets excited about. Cameras, lenses, lights, mics, all the cool tools that we love to nerd out about. But I do want to say something up front. I mean it when I say that great gear doesn't make a great filmmaker. You can do incredible work on basic tools if you understand the fundamentals. And that's what this course has been all about. That said, having the right gear for your needs and budget makes the process way easier, faster, and definitely more fun. If what you have is a smartphone, use your smartphone with a manual video app. I recommend using the Blackmagic Photo app. It's free and super awesome. Or you can use a mirrorless camera like the Canon M50, the Nikon Z30, or the Sony ZV-E10. For a microphone, there's the Rode Video Micro or the Deity VMic D4 Mini. You can also use your phone's voice recorder as a backup. Lighting. The easiest way to go is natural light and a white reflector. You can use a cheap clamp light from Home Depot or a daylight bulb. Neewer or Lanzi have some really affordable LED panels. Tripod and stabilization. Amazon Basics tripod works great, or the Joby GorillaPod is pretty cool. You can absolutely shoot a short film, a YouTube channel, or mini doc with this kit. Easy. I would recommend the Nikon Z30 or Z50, or something like the Sony ZV-E10 or the Canon R50, maybe the Panasonic G9 or GH5 if you can find one used. For microphone, I would go with the Rode Wireless Go 2 or the DJI Mic 2 or Mini. There's the Deity D4 Duo for interviews or ambient. And for lighting, you can go with Aperture or Amaran 100D or the 60X. Make sure you get a softbox like the Light Dome Mini or similar, and it's always good to invest in some reflectors or bounce boards. Extras. You want to make sure to invest in extra batteries. Get an ND filter for sure for outdoor shooting. You'll probably want a lavalier mic for interviews. You can use a simple gimbal like the DJI RS4 Mini. This is a rock-solid kit for freelancers, YouTubers, and growing creators who want more control and quality. I've got a Nikon Z8 full-frame 10-bit internal video with gorgeous color. It does 8K internal ProRes, insane dynamic range, and it's also a great hybrid camera because I do both photo and video work. For lenses, I use all Nikon Z-mount S lenses. I've got the 35mm prime f1.8, the 85mm f1.2, and the 50mm f1.2. I use the Z24 to 70mm 2.8 for versatility. Good choices for audio. You can use a lav like a Tascam DR10L or the DJI Mic 2. For a shotgun mic, maybe the Rode NTG5 or the Deity S Mic 2. Recorder, I use a Zoom H6 or you can get an H5 for dual mic interview setups. And for lighting, I use lots of Aperture lights. You can use the Aperture 120D Mark II or the Amaran 100X is a nice light. I use the Light Dome 2 softbox. You can use some accent lighting like RGB pocket lights or string bulbs, or get some practicals. For stabilization, you can use a Manfrotto fluid head. For a gimbal, I would recommend the DJI RS4 Pro. Make sure you get some C-stands or boom poles for lights and mics. So that's more or less the kit that I use for high-end client work, YouTube content, travel shoots, and pretty much everything you've ever seen in this course. I'll put a full link to all the equipment that I use in the description below if you're curious about all of it, and I'll give you links where you can find it easy as well. You want to get fast SD cards, and you want extra batteries and chargers, external solid-state drives for editing, reflectors. Bounce disc is great. You want a lens cloth and a blower to keep your lens and sensor clean. You'll definitely want a camera bag with real padding. If you're building your kit, here's where I would start, no matter your level. Number 1, you want good audio. 2, basic lighting. 3, reliable camera. 4, one great lens. 5, a solid tripod or a stabilizer. Get those right and you can film anything. Gear should support your creativity, not slow you down or overwhelm you. Start with what you have. Upgrade slowly and focus on mastering the why behind every single shot. We've got one more final chapter to go, and it's all about how to keep improving and leveling up your skills after this course. All right, so you've made it to the end of this course. You now understand your camera, your lenses, your settings, lighting, sound, editing, and color. This puts you way ahead of where most people start. But here's the secret. The real learning is going to start after this course, when you go out and you start making stuff. You don't need a client, and you don't need a script, and you don't need a big idea to practice. Just go film something. Make a 30-second silent story, maybe a 1-minute B-roll montage. Go interview a friend. Shoot the same scene 3 different ways. Try one lighting setup each week. The only way to get better is to keep picking up your camera. Go back and watch your favorite movies again, but this time ask yourself, why did they frame it that way? What lens do you think they used? How's the lighting helping the story? What's the mood of the color grade? You'll learn so much just by paying attention like a filmmaker instead of a fan. Don't wait for the perfect project. Just start. Just start documenting your work. Keep a folder and put all of your favorite shots in that. Build a separate website or Instagram just for your videos. And say yes to small projects that will stretch you. Film your friends, your travels, your story. Every shoot is a chance to learn and level up. Creativity thrives in community. Find some local filmmakers. Join online forums, Reddit groups, or a Facebook video community. Comment on YouTube videos that you admire. Offer to help on small productions. You really want to surround yourself with people who are on the same journey, or even a little bit ahead so you can learn from them. You don't need to be perfect to start posting. Go start that YouTube channel. Post your first short film. Try out a behind-the-scenes reel. Just begin. Remember, you're not here to impress. You're here to progress. So whether you want to make films, run a video business, shoot content for YouTube, or just capture your world with purpose, you're already doing it. You've learned the language, now it's time to go speak it fluently with your own style, your own story, and your own voice. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait till it's perfect. Just pick up your camera and go make something. If you got something from this course, please drop a comment and let me know what you're working on. And if you want more, subscribe to the channel because I've got gear reviews, lighting setups, behind the scenes, and much more coming your way.